This lens is wide, wide, wide. Hello everybody, this is Dave Dugdale, learningdslrvideo.com, and today I'm reviewing the Tokina 11 to 16 millimeter wide angle lens built for the Canon. I've had it for a few weeks now, so I've had a lot of fun with it. And in this review, I'm going to cover the price, the sharpness, how sharp it is, the speed of focus, build quality, and then I'll cover which cameras this works well for. Before I start the review, let me first tell you that I am not a Scott Bourne. And if you don't know who Scott Bourne is, you should definitely check him out. Definitely check out his podcast. I do not own every lens known to man like Scott Bourne does. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm coming at it from an amateur like myself, an amateur photographer, videographer, whatever you want to call it. All right, first off, this is coming in at around $600 or so, depending where you buy it. This is not a cheap lens. In fact, if you compare it to the Canon T2i, which is about $650 or so, so $50 more just for the Canon body, it's a lot of money. But people say you should definitely invest in your glass because you're going to replace your body every 2 or 3 years. All right, yes, it is expensive, but if you look at the alternatives for buying a wide angle lens, and I'm not too sure why they cost so much, but if you look at the Canon's version of this, which is the super wide angle EF 14mm 2.8, that comes in well over $2,000. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's like, wow, the Tokina is a lot cheaper. So I listened to a lot of podcasts, and one of the podcasts I was listening to told me that a lot of the glass that Canon gets, Nikon gets, all the third-party lenses like Tokina, Sigma, all come from a company called Hoya, the glass itself. So they're all kind of starting on a similar playing field. I don't know if it's, this applies exactly to this particular lens or not, but if they're all starting on a level playing field, what they do with it in terms of polishing it, the engineering, and all that other stuff I have no idea about. There's a possibility that the third-party lens could, be as good as a Canon or a Nikon lens. And I know a lot of professional photographers don't like to use third-party lenses because of various reasons like sharpness, for instance. But I was looking at the B&H website for reviews, and there are a ton, I think hundreds of reviews for this particular lens, which is pretty amazing for a third-party lens. So what can you use a wide-angle lens for? Well, one of the favorite video shots that I've gotten so far, I was up at a ski resort, and before they kicked me off the slopes, I got this shot of a snowboarder going by, and as he goes by, it's a very dramatic look as the snowboarder passes through the distortion of the lens. So it can give you definitely a very different look than you have with a normal wide-angle lens, like a 28, for instance. So in terms of what other uses, maybe like you're doing a bathroom scene. There's no way you're going to use a 20 or a 30 prime inside the bathroom. You'd have to rip out a wall to get it. So using a wide angle lens definitely helps. Real estate is another good example. Landscapes. Probably one of the coolest things I've done with this is on a slider. And I've got a slider video coming out that I'm using the Canova slider. And using that wide angle lens it just gives it a whole different look that's just really, really cool. All right, in terms of sharpness, a lot of people like to test the sharpness of the lens with a brick wall. If we zoom in, let's say 1:1 ratio, and we put it right in the center of the brick wall, you'll see that the brick wall looks pretty darn sharp. But I guess the big test with a wide angle lens is how sharp is it in the corners. So we'll go all the way up here, and you can kind of see it does lose sharpness up in the corners. Let's take a look down here. See, it's maybe not as sharp. It's probably not the best thing because there's no brick right there. Well, let's go up here in this other corner. And sure enough, it doesn't look as sharp as it does right in the center. So this lens can go down to 2.8, which is awesome. So I would really consider this a fast glass lens. So if you're doing photography inside, let's say, and you need to raise the shutter speed to freeze action, this is definitely a good lens for that. Also, in terms of videos, if you're in a low light situation, being able to go down to 2.8 is definitely a Charlie Sheen win kind of situation. Also, in another situation, Trey Radcliffe, who I follow a lot because I try to do HDR, he said when you get to these type of real wide angle lenses, it's just about when you get down to f4, let's say, pretty much everything is in focus within a few yards from the lens. So I don't know if that's an advantage or not, but you don't really have to pay attention to the focus as much when you get this super wide. So in terms of landscapes, it's a really cool lens to try out. So many of the expert photographers talk about how they don't like to use third-party lenses because of the speed of how fast it can focus. So what I did is I've created kind of a little test side by side with one of my Canon lenses and one of the Tokina lenses, and you can be the judge just listening to the quick focus how fast it acquires the focus on a far subject to a close subject. Everybody talks about build quality. This feels really good in terms of the build quality, especially when you compare it to like my 50 Prime, which a lot of people call fantastic plastic or nifty 50. And they call it fantastic plastic for a reason because it's made out of plastic, the case is. This is definitely has a very good construction to it. One of the downsides though is if you're wearing this around your neck, let's say, on your camera, it's going to get heavy after a while. So what cameras does this work well on? It definitely works well on like the Canon T2i 550D, 60D, 3Ti, all those crop sensor, APC, I think they're called crop sensors. Now, from what I understand, if you put this lens on Canon 5D, which is a full frame, when you go all the way down to 11 millimeters, you're going to get some vignetting because of the geometry of it all, which I don't quite understand. So it's definitely a great lens for a crop sensor, but you could definitely use it for like the 5D as long as you don't go down to like 11 or if you're looking for that vignetting effect. So in conclusion, I think it's an awesome lens. When I first got it, I thought of it more of like a specialty lens that I would keep in my camera case and I wouldn't pull out that often. But I'm actually surprised. I've used it a lot, especially with slider shots. And even, I had the kid's birthday. I had a ton of kids in the kitchen, and there's no way I would have gotten that with one of my other lenses. This lens is great for those type of situations where you need to fit everything in. So I'm actually finding I'm using it a lot. And the fact that it's a constant aperture is kind of a neat idea for video. And what I mean by constant aperture is I can go from 11 to 16 within that zoom range, and it's going to keep the aperture the same. Like on my 28 to 135, if I were to zoom in, it would start to stop it down from like 3.5 to 5.6, for instance, and you would see the iris actually going click, 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 click as you go zooming in. So you can't zoom in while you're videoing, but with this one, you could if you actually wanted to give that a try. So in conclusion, great lens. I mean, for the price, the nearest thing being $2,000, it's kind of hard to beat. And with all the reviews that are out there, I mean, a lot of people have this lens and really like it. And I know it has kind of the stigma of being a third-party lens, but gosh, it looks and it performs really well from an amateur like myself. All right, that's pretty much it. Talk to you guys later. Bye.